There are certain people who don't fear the loudest voice in the room. No, it's not the one who shouts the most that intimidates them. It's the person who speaks last, or not at all. You've probably encountered this type, the kind who doesn't need to call attention to themselves to draw it. They simply walk into a space, and suddenly the air feels different. Not because they're famous or violent, but because their presence exudes something deeper, something you can't quite put your finger on. It's a quiet kind of gravity. They don't chase approval. They don't try to explain themselves. And they definitely don't need to raise their voice. What they carry, quietly, is the most powerful weapon anyone can have. A mind that simply cannot be manipulated. Have you noticed how, when you start changing, really changing, people around you begin to shift too? When you become calmer, clearer, more selective about who you give your time to, suddenly, the energy changes. The people around you start to act differently. They fidget, crack jokes, offer false concerns, maybe even act like they're confused. But deep down, it's not confusion they're feeling, it's fear. Not fear of your anger, but of your clarity. It's not your words that scare them. It's the things you no longer feel the need to say. You've stopped explaining. You've stopped performing. You've stopped trying to be liked. And that, on its own, makes you terrifying to them. You've touched something they've avoided for a long time. The truth. Not the kind of truth that comes from pointing out everyone else's flaws, but the kind of truth that lives in the quiet space where you've learned to master yourself. You no longer crave to be chosen. You no longer beg to belong. And that emotional cage they're still trapped in, you've stepped right out of it. Machiavelli wrote, "The predictable man is the controllable man." And nature warned us, the free mind will always be alone, but it cannot be conquered. This is important to understand. The world doesn't reward independence. It rewards obedience. It's designed to keep you comfortable, agreeable, and quiet. But occasionally, someone chooses differently. They choose discipline over comfort. They choose stillness over applause. They choose detachment over validation. And if you're still with me, watching this video, there's a good chance you might be one of them. This is how you build a mind that terrifies, by raising your voice, not through threats or aggression, but through calm, quiet certainty. The kind of certainty that says, I no longer belong to anyone. And that alone, that's what makes you untouchable. Weak men react. Strong men respond. But terrifying men, they wait. They let the storm pass. They watch the chaos unfold around them. They take it all in. The words, the actions, every little reveal. And only then do they decide how to act. In war, business, love, wherever you are, the first person to lose control loses power. It's not rage that makes you strong. It's the ability to control that rage. It's like a blade that stays sheathed until the outcome is already secured. Because here's the hard truth. When crisis designed to make you flinch. But the moment you react, you're revealed. And once you've been revealed, you've become predictable. And the predictable man, well, he's the controllable one. A strong mind doesn't suppress emotion, it studies it. Pain becomes data. Jealousy becomes a mirror. Anger becomes leverage. You stop saying, "I feel this way." Instead, you say, "Interesting. Let's see where this leads." Machiavelli would advise, never show your true emotions in public. Never let anyone see what rattles you, because perception bends reality. And silence is far more terrifying than any explanation. The most dangerous person in the room isn't the one shouting. It isn't the one pacing. It's the one who's still, watching, calculating, untouched by the chaos around them. Why? Because they possess something that most people lack: strategic delay. They don't defend their ego. They don't chase closure. They don't plead to be understood. They aren't impulsive. They're surgical. They've learned that not every provocation deserves a reaction. Not every tear signals innocence. Not every burst of anger should be released. In fact, the stronger the emotion, the deeper the pause must be. Pause before speaking. Pause before deciding. Pause before acting. Not out of fear, but out of control. Because in the pause, you reclaim your power. And in a world addicted to outrage, power is the rarest drug. Let's be clear. Emotional control isn't about numbness. It's not about turning yourself into a stone. It's about motion without manipulation. Action without reaction. Think about it. The greatest warriors in history, the men who built empires, they weren't the loudest. They were the coldest. Not cruel, not heartless, just composed. They buried friends without tears. They faced betrayal without flinching. They sat across from enemies with such steady calm that it became a weapon in itself. You don't have to be as ruthless as that, but you must know what's at stake. Because every time you lose control, someone else takes it. And this is where your transformation begins. If you want to build a mind that terrifies, not with noise, but with unshakable presence, you must be the one who never cracks, the one who never flinches, the one who makes others question their own stability simply by staying still. Train your emotions to report to you, not command you. So the next time you're insulted, pause. Don't defend. Don't explain. Don't retaliate. Smile. Let them wonder what you're thinking. Let their own imagination destroy them. Because fear grows in silence. And silence, when used with precision, is the first true act of psychological warfare. So ask yourself, can you hold the silence? Can you stay in discomfort without twitching? Can you stare into chaos and not blink? If you can, you're already rising. Because average men seek relief. Unbreakable men seek clarity. And clarity begins with control. You will never be powerful as long as you still need something from anyone. The moment you need to be liked, you've surrendered leverage. The moment you crave to be understood, you've handed over your strings. And the second you seek their validation, you've forfeited your presence before you even step into the room. Let's get this straight. Neediness is not emotional honesty. It's emotional dependence. And dependence is the foundation of control, but not by you. Detachment is the antidote. Not coldness, not apathy, but full-spectrum psychological detachment. What does that mean? It means you no longer ask for permission to be who you are. You no longer dilute your presence to fit fragile rooms. You no longer over-explain your essence just to feel accepted. Here's the brutal truth. Most people don't want to understand you. They want you to make them comfortable. And if your clarity makes them feel small, if your strength exposes their excuses, they'll call you arrogant. They'll call you cold. They'll slip. They'll call you cold. They'll call you cold. They'll call you arrogant. Say you're emotionally unavailable. Let them. They're not rejecting you. They're rejecting the mirror your presence holds up to them. And what they see is everything they've avoided becoming. You weren't born to be liked. You were born to master yourself. And mastery begins the moment you stop negotiating your existence. Think about it. Who do we truly respect? It's never the one who bends to fit. It's the one who stands firm, even when misunderstood. The one who doesn't shrink to be seen. The one who speaks with clarity, not consensus. The one who walks away when neediness pollutes the air. Detachment isn't escape. It's not ghosting. It's not disappearing out of anger. It's presence without performance. It's boundaries without justification. It's the power to leave without leaving a trace of apology. Because the moment someone demands an explanation for your standards, they've already disrespected them. Detachment means walking into a room full of power plays, fake smiles, ego contests, and remaining utterly unbothered. Why? Because you're not there to be liked. You're there to watch, to influence, to bend the room quietly without ever touching it. And here's the paradox. The less you need, the more they chase. The less you reveal, the more they obsess. The less predictable you become, the more they project power onto you. Why? Because human beings fear what they can't decode. And the man who needs nothing becomes impossible to define, impossible to contain. Let them guess. Let them wonder why you're not replying. Let them wonder why your silence feels heavier than words. Let them wonder why you don't chase, explain, or apologize. Let them drown in the stories they create around your absence. This is what Machiavelli meant by silent dominance. Not brute force, not manipulation, but gravity. You don't chase attention. You command orbits. Because while Nothing. Most give away power just to be seen. You must become the exception. You must embrace invisibility until visibility serves your purpose. You don't exist to be known. You exist to be effective. And often, those two things are not the same. The moment you stop explaining, the world starts adapting to your silence. And in that silence, where need once screamed, something rare is born. Presence, not loud, not needy, but undeniable. A presence that terrifies, not with threat, not with anger, but with the quiet knowing that you no longer wait to be chosen. You choose yourself. Most people aren't afraid of being alone. They're afraid of what surfaces when there's no one left to perform for. Because when the audience vanishes, so does the mask. And that's why true solitude, not loneliness, but chosen separation, is terrifying to the weak and sacred to the strong. The average mind can't sit in stillness. It craves noise. It searches for distraction. It fills the silence with dopamine, validation, and shallow conversations. Because when silence stretches too long, it starts to echo. And in that echo, they hear something they've buried for years. Their own voice. The terrifying mind doesn't run from that voice. It listens. It sharpens it. It learns to move through the world without approval because it no longer seeks echo, only clarity. Solitude isn't absence. It's full presence without dependency. It's the space where all false identities decay, where borrowed beliefs fall off like rust, where you stop being what the world made you and start becoming who you truly are. Nature called this process the death of God, not to destroy belief, but to destroy dependence, to strip away all inherited meaning until only your raw essence remains. He believed that only when you stand in that abyss with nothing to cling to does the real self begin to form. And it's in that psychological desert, that barren, unfiltered space, that your edge is forged. Because here's what they never teach you. You don't become unbreakable by being celebrated. You become unbreakable. Unbreakable when you sit in your own thoughts and don't collapse. That's why most people fear solitude. It removes the buffer. No more distractions. No more applause. No one left to blame. Just you and the weight of your own mind. And if your mind is weak, you'll fold. But if you stay, if you face the boredom, the chaos, the voice in the dark, something begins to shift. You begin to think clearer, fail deeper, choose sharper, and act with clean intention. Because solitude kills performance. And what's left after performance dies is real. And real, that's rare. Every man who's bent the world in his favor, every strategist, every leader, every sovereign soul, first walked alone. Alone with his demons, alone with his doubts, alone in the cold silence where excuses don't survive. You want to know why most men stay average? It's because they can't sit still without losing their mind. They mistake mistake silence for emptiness, stillness for weakness. But the terrifying mind knows the truth. Silence is leverage. Because the quieter you become, the more you notice what others miss. Their insecurities, their emotional tells, their micro-reactions. The moment they try to dominate a conversation, you're already 3 steps ahead. Why? Because you're not trying to be heard. You're listening to what they didn't say. When they speak too much, you stay silent. When they move too fast, you stand still. And when the moment is right, you strike. Not with noise, not with anger, but with surgical clarity, forged in your solitude. Solitude isn't exile. It's training. It's mental conditioning. It's the dojo where presence is born. And the man who trains alone never fears walking away, because he knows he's never really alone. That's why they fear you when you're comfortable in solitude, because it means they're no longer your oxygen. Their presence isn't your validation. Their absence isn't your death. You don't depend. You don't cling. You don't beg. You choose. You observe. You build. The terrifying mind isn't chaotic. It isn't desperate. It isn't chasing. It's still. It's grounded. It's patient. And it got that way by doing what weak men run from.